What's up, nerds? On today's episode, we'll be talking about the politics behind Star Wars. The recent prequel spin-offs dig deeper into the revolutionary lore that serves as a foundation for the beloved 1977 classic, A New Hope. The themes of anti-fascism, rebellion, and hope are reflected in the show Andor and make striking parallels to what we are facing in the US and globally today. What can we learn from rebels such as Cassian, Saw, Mon Mothma, and Luthen, and why is it so hard to be a rebel in real life? I am joined today by Sydney and Desiree, but we also have a special guest, um, Sirius Black. Hello and welcome to Friends with No Benefits. It is awesome to have you here today.
I'm
Um,
very excited to be here.
we are very excited to have you here. And Desiree and Sydney, of course, it's awesome to have you here with me as well. Today we're talking about Star Wars, and I'm very excited to talk about this topic because it's very near and dear to my heart. I grew up on it with my dad introduced me to it, and being radicalized and becoming a communist, seeing the parallels between Star Wars and real life today. I've been very excited to have this conversation. But Sydney has basically built a framework for us to go off of. And so we're gonna follow her lead through this. And if we have any points that we want to touch on, then we can do that. But go ahead and take us off or set us off, Sydney.
I think the best place to start is discussing the very beginning of Star Wars back in 1977 when we were introduced to A New Hope. When we were looking at A New Hope and watching it, we were introduced to the concept of just good versus evil, light versus dark. And it was a very simplified version of the battle that we're facing, and especially we didn't really get a good look at the politics that were involved in the empire, the rise of the empire. And even when we got to the prequels from the early 2000s, we still didn't get a whole lot of the political um, and I'm losing the word, but the political underbelly of what was happening. We were really just entranced with the lightsaber fights. We didn't get a good idea of what was going on with the rebellion until we got to Rogue One. And from a spinoff with Rogue One, we got into Andor, which really delved into a it was essentially just a spy show of how to build a rebellion. And with that, we were introduced to the characters of Cassian Andor, Luthen Rael, Dedra Miro, Cyril, and Mon Mothma. And really, they are the ones who pushed the rebellion, even though we got to watch Luke be the one to destroy the Death Star and then rebuild the Jedi. It was the only way it would have been possible in the first place if it had been for the foot soldiers of the rebellion, such as Cassian, such as Luthen, and Cyril. All of them had their role to play. And I think that's why Andor and Rogue One are such critical pieces of media that need to be watched in today's day and age because we are currently looking at a fascist regime. And there's no way to get
Absolutely.
through it without looking at these pieces of media and seeing what they did.
So, one point I want to touch on, like you were saying, we didn't really get too deep into the politics in the original trilogy and the prequels. We got more politics in the prequels than we did in the OG. And the first mention that we have of anything sort of political in the OG series is that round table with Darth Vader, Grand Moff Tarkin, and the other heads of the military. They note that the Emperor has finally dissolved the Senate. So the Senate was, up until that point, the Senate was basically just figureheads. And at that point, the Emperor has now completely dissolved the Senate. The Emperor has now now has absolute power. There is no need for talking heads. And then in the OG trilogy, that's when we're introduced to the idea of who Palpatine or how Palpatine came into power. Um, so yeah, that I just wanted to touch on those real quick.
And we can just jump in at any time, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, go for it.
Okay. Well, something I was thinking about as Sid was describing, what we got in the first movie and the initial trilogy. It's been a while for me, but I think that what's important to recognize too is that while they did establish like clearly a villain of the film,
Mm-hmm.
they just all you got was that this villain had a red lightsaber, maybe, and they wore all black and they had a weird voice and all that. But the underlining tone of politics was there. If because at some point they're talking about the fact that he is this warlord type character, and that's clearly not a character that is like for the side of the people if they're trying to take over planets and build like a giant doomsday machine.
Right.
Nobody who's like you for mutual aid is on that journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think what we got in the later movies is the fact that I think they tried to put that idea in there, but they realized, you know what? I think we're just gonna have to spell it out
Mm-hmm.
for people.
Yeah, and I what I love about George Lucas is he's never shied away from what the like when in interviews he's never shied away from what the original message of A New Hope was.
Mm-hmm.
He's been very clear, and I don't know about his current politics, but he's been very always been vocal about where he stands politically in the past. He's um more of a left leaning sort of person. And
Yep.
so he originally he based the rebellion off of the Viet Cong, and the empire is based off of the United States. A lot of people got up, and a lot of Star Wars fans get up in arms about that because rah rah siskumba America, but the empire is literally based off of the United States. The way that they try to impose their will on the people of Vietnam, and subsequently lost that war. Nobody likes to admit that either. The United States got their ass handed to them. And what I love about George Lucas's approach to Star Wars, I mean, he got his inspiration from, people like Kurosawa. It was supposed to be like a samurai sort of film. And George Lucas was his overarching focus was on the story of the Skywalkers. And so we got, like these are uh Luke Skywalker was quote unquote a Mary Sue, this person that comes out of nowhere and then gains all of this power and and becomes the savior of the rebellion. But like Sydney was saying, this is like, our introduction to the world of Star Wars is the Skywalkers. But now we're starting to see more of everything be fleshed out more, and understand who these people were that weren't the Force wielders. The most important people in the story are those who are not Force wielding individuals. These people who are boots on the ground doing the dirty work. Because if we're going to be honest, and compare this to modern day happenings in politics, the rebellion is, it's a revolutionary movement, and the way that they operate is the spitting image of what most uh, major countries today would call terrorists. And honestly, if we're being honest, if you're not being called a terrorist at this point, you're probably on the wrong side of history. So
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a good bit. Sorry, go ahead.
you're fine. I mean, I was just gonna say to Xavier's point, I think in Andor, Dedra Miro and the ISB get pretty close if they don't actually use the word terrorists when describing the rebels,
mhm.
or at least using rebels in a very dirty connotation. to
hmm
very much get very close to that analogy, that comparison of no, you can understand large how they were.
I
Yep.
think that was one of the things about the OG trilogy that one of the differences about the Andor versus the OG trilogy. In the OG, we are introduced to this world through the eyes of Luke Skywalker, and we know Luke is the good guy, right? But in Andor, the lines are so incredibly blurred because we now see what it takes to fight an empire. We now see what it takes to lead a revolution. And that fighting against a power like the empire, asymmetrical warfare and whatnot, you're going to have to do things that seem dirty, things that seem underhanded, things that make you look like a bad guy. Because you can't, it's like this, the No Kings protest that happened this past weekend. Everyone loves the rah rah siskum ba pep rally type thing, but when you're signing up for a protest, when you're getting permission from the city, when you're having the police literally come out and assist and block traffic, that's not a protest. That's a pep rally.
I
It's
mean,
you're
we
not
saw it in
doing it.
Andor.
Yeah.
We saw what happened in Andor when they got permission from, the state, when they had this organized rally and then it was used against them
Mm-hmm. Yep.
for the Gorman massacre.
Yeah.
Yep.
Or they allow it to happen knowing that it won't be as effective as we would want it to be in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that, I mean,
Right.
that's what
It's
happened this weekend.
performative. It's performative on their end because then they're placating to the people complaining about them and making them feel like they got some sort of small win while actually achieving nothing.
hmm And that's
So,
what happened. That's what happened this weekend. We leftists were saying, you cannot just, number one, you can't protest effectively if you're getting permission from daddy. That's not a protest. Either
mm-mm.
the oppressor is going to ignore you. Number two, um, Donald Trump has made it clear that he's going to, like, none of this, he doesn't take any of these things seriously. So after these protests, these ineffectual protests that did nothing, you stood on the sidewalks and you held signs about how angry Trump is making you. Trump then puts out videos showing him shitting on protesters.
That was wild.
He's not taking any
Mhm.
of this seriously. But because they allowed this to happen, he can, the people, this is the new talking point for conservatives is, well, if Trump was truly a dictator, if he was truly a king, you all would be dead. You wouldn't have been allowed to do what you did this weekend. Even though this wasn't a protest, it was just a pep rally. They are now using that because Trump let them. Well, I mean, you would have been dead if he was truly a king or a dictator.
See, that's the thing, though. I think what's crazy is whenever you see people standing up for their rights, which they should, it's like society wants to remind you that those aren't rights. Or literally, it's like a privilege when it's not.
Right.
Like having your basic needs met, speaking out for everyone else, including yourself. They want to present it as if it's a privilege in order to suppress our voices. And so that's what's pretty interesting to me.
It
Now,
is.
I have not seen Andor. I think I saw maybe one episode with you and Sid, I want to say. Remember? No, you remember this. We saw, but I do love Star Wars. I've seen everything else.
It's okay. We're
And
gonna flip it.
yeah, I think for me personally, Revenge of the Sith is my favorite, stands out the
Goated.
most. Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's
And then also Rogue One. Rogue One
Well,
really hit, especially the ending,
It
that
slaps.
self-sacrifice. Yes.
yeah.
And I'm just now accepting the ending of Rogue One as a fan because I never liked the ending. And
Right.
I'm admitting that here
Right.
and now.
Because you watch it, right, and you fall in love with these characters. I mean, of all the Star Wars films, I've never been so connected. Being a leftist and a communist, I've never felt so connected to characters within the Star Wars universe. And I'm like, holy shit, these are people of mine own heart, or after mine own heart, you know? And you come to the end of the film and you already know how it's going to end because we know how A New Hope begins. But you're
Right.
like, no, 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 no. It can be different. Retcon it. Retcon it.
Yes.
Right.
I had an alternative ending in my head for many years
Yeah.
until I finally
Yeah.
just faced the fact that,
But
you
as
know
like
what, there's
the movie's going along,
self-sacrifice.
you get towards like the
Yeah.
middle of the movie and you're like, oh shit,
Oh
no, I
no.
already know
Yes.
how it's
Like
going. You're like,
like
wait, no, no.
where's that space
Yeah.
magic when you need it?
Yeah, that's what I'm
The
saying.
space
Well, I mean,
magic.
Leia, what is it? The Last Jedi, Leia is able
Right.
to survive space and then fly back into the ship. Give me that.
Yeah. Exactly. But
Listen,
what I love
okay, but
most
that's
about
because it's
this,
Leia.
yeah, that's because
Yeah.
it's yeah. But what I
That's
love
because
most about the
it's Leia.
Star Wars universe in general is the fact that there's a lot of like timeless themes. You get the good versus evil. You get a lot of what's happening in Star Wars, and you're able to quickly compare and relate it to what's happening now in reality. It's quite interesting. It tackles a lot of world issues, including political corruption as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
One
think the main. Sorry, go ahead, Sirius.
so one of the things I wanted to mention were two other shows, and that would be Clone Wars and
Mhm.
Rebels. And I feel like they need to be in in this conversation too, because like Andor was the epitome of showing the rebellion, the grittiness, what it's like to fight people with lots of backing, capitalistic gains, everything. They have all the tools, while the rebellion has to, resort to guerrilla warfare in a lot of ways. But in Clone Wars and in Rebels, starting in Clone Wars, you get to see the Empire itself and their own problems from within. Because look how many defectors came out of Clone Wars.
Mhm.
Because I don't know how they got tricked into working for the Empire in the first place, or some of them, obviously like the clones were just made and like, this is your job now, whatever. But even at some point, some of their top generals and stuff was like, yo, we not the good guys, you know?
Yeah. I think to your point, one of the things that like surprised me, but kind of like it's a parallel to what's happening today in the Clone Wars. That's the period in between episode 2 and episode 3. It's literally showing the fall of the Republic. The separatists have gone off and want to, they're defecting from the Republic, and then the Republic is essentially going after the Confederacy to bring them back in. And like they created a droid army and whatnot to fight against the Republic. But the overarching theme is the fall of the Republic, and how through all of this you have Palpatine pulling the strings from the background. This has been in the making. It's like what's happening in the United States. All of this has been in the making in the Star Wars universe for decades. Palpatine has been planning this with his master Darth Plagueis, and this has been in the making for decades. And it's a slow burn. That's what I love about not only the overarching fall of the Republic, but Andor itself. Everything about it is a slow burn. It's not like one event happens and all of a sudden it comes crashing down. Same with the United States. What is happening in the US is the culmination of not only the Confederacy not being held accountable, but the Nazis after World War II not being held accountable as well. It's just been placation after placation for the feelings of racist white men, time and time and time again. And now we are to the point where this is out in the open, and we're already too far gone. So you got to that same point in Star Wars. It was like, oh, the Jedi are suspecting, and I have my feelings about the Jedi. They make me angry being the or the space police. That shit makes me so angry, because they used to be like, and we're not going to really touch on it, but Acolyte is one of my favorite series as well. It's
I was going to
incredible.
talk about that.
I was just
It's
about to say this
incredible.
too.
I'm just going to touch on it because the themes in Acolyte lead into this. So in the Acolyte, the Jedi are supposed to be keepers, not keepers of the peace, but basically they're supposed to be like space monks. They're supposed to be out there, peace and love and just, you know, like guiding people of the galaxy, like in the right direction, sort of thing. They're not
They're
supposed to be
supposed to be
interfere.
spiritualists and people of faith,
Yes, they're
essentially.
not
Yeah.
supposed to be, interfering with other people, but they are supposed to be like a guiding light sort of thing. But in the Acolyte is where we really start to see the Jedi Order move towards its downfall. They are
Yeah.
all up in everybody else's business because they should be the only ones with the ability to access the Force. It's like Christian nationalism sort of thing. That starts the Jedi on their path of religious superiority, and that carries over to the prequel trilogy and how they become the world police, but they're so clouded by the bureaucracy within the Jedi Order that they forget, or not forget, but they cannot see what Palpatine is doing.
Yeah.
Yoda even says it himself. He, clouded by the dark side. This is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
I
mentioned
was gonna make
religious
that
superiority,
point.
but also moral superiority as well.
Hmm.
Is what comes to mind. The just even them just dismissing a lot of other perspectives too.
Yep.
Thinking they know best than who they're teaching. It's a lot of there's a lot of lessons within Star Wars to be learned, I think. But yeah, I do want to throw in moral superiority.
I want to say something, but I want Sid to go ahead and say what you were going to say, and then
I mean, I just wanted to touch on the point that what Xavier said that we saw in the Acolyte, the beginnings of the corruption of the Jedi Order and how they couldn't stay in their own lane is also what built toward the eventual fall of the Republic and how Palpatine was able to utilize that.
Hmm.
Because we can see it in the very beginning of episode 1, where even though we know that they are the Trade Federation is up to no good,
oh yeah,
they are so sick of seeing the Jedi come in. They're like, damn it, these guys. And
Hmm.
you can understand that that is a universally felt um feeling
Yeah, it's like
within
the
yeah,
Jedi should
within
be
the universe.
used. The Jedi are supposed to be, like we said before, they're supposed to be just like monks, space monks. They're supposed
hmm
to be, like just minding their business, kind of a guiding light. But they've become the space police. The
yeah.
Nemoidians are like, God damn it, not the Jedi again,
Again, right?
because
I mean,
they're not supposed to be used as enforcers. They're using the Jedi as enforcers.
yeah, or even like enforcers, or at least at the very least, scare tactics.
Hmm.
But I look at it like what would be considered like a third world country village or something like that, and missionaries showing up
Yeah,
and try to end like impede,
That's so good.
missionaries
right?
with guns.
Yeah. The only thing I was going to say before is that with the acolyte and the portrayal of the Jedi in there, I really appreciate it because it did show their faults for a change,
Hmm.
and
Yes.
I was like, finally, because people keep treating these guys like royalty, but like you watch them in every single thing we've seen mess up constantly.
Hmm.
And like, how did you get to become the deciding factor? And I think what they kept relying on, how they kept trying to say it, was that they're following the ways of the Force, right? But like, none of y'all ever considered that the Force could be manipulated.
Hmm. Or the fact that one of the things I loved about Rebels and is how they show us that there is no right way to use the Force and
Mm-hmm.
one bad way to use the Force. There is a balance. There's always a balance that needs to be in the Force, but there is no right and there is no wrong. The Sith are guided by their emotions, and they think that they operate through fear, hatred, and the need for possession. The Jedi reject that possession and don't think that connection and love are necessary for their connection with the Force. But the Sith have those points in their religion that are correct. The Jedi have those points in their religion that are correct. But they both operate on this opposite end of the spectrum where they go to this extremism. And it's that
Mm-hmm.
dichotomy that we see today of Christianity and Islam. Like,
Yep.
there is nothing inherently wrong with Christianity. There's nothing inherently wrong with Islam. But in the United States, we're seeing Christian nationalism on the rise. We've seen in different other cases, we've seen extremism in Islam, right?
Yep.
But most of the world today most of the issues today in the world have to do with Christian nationalism. But we're not going to get in that right now.
Do y'all? I have a question for y'all because maybe y'all can help me out with something.
Hmm?
Because based on what you just said, is that what they were trying to portray with Rey in like those last few movies? Like, you know, there was like the dark version of Rey, and then like
Yeah.
the trying to become that. Is that what they were trying to get over?
Hmm. Yeah, so
Okay.
it was Ray. We know, God, those movies piss me off beyond anything. But it was,
Oops.
don't get me fucking started. I'll explain it real quick what I mean. So
Okay.
I enjoyed the Force Awakens. Okay, I enjoyed the Force Awakens. I was very excited to see a former stormtrooper become a Jedi, and it would have been amazing if Rey and Finn were the dyad. That would have been amazing, right? But then you have a director like Ryan Johnson come in, who's I need to burn everything down to start afresh. He Ryan Johnson is a great director, but he does not deal with characters of color well. He took all of the characters of color and basically threw them under the bus.
Yeah.
They
Absolutely.
became stuck in side plots. And I hate talking about the
And
sequel
weird
trilogy.
ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate talking about the sequel trilogy because there were people that hated the movies because they're racist and bigoted and misogynistic, and I always get
Yep.
lumped in with those people because I just don't like the way that Ryan Johnson wrote characters of color.
Yep.
And that's, but
There
the
were
way
so
that
many better
Ray was,
directions they could have taken it.
oh
So
yes,
many
So
better
Ray
many.
directions
was
that they could have taken it.
Ray was dealing with the issue of being a granddaughter of Palpatine, and that's what they were trying to focus on. And it was also the fact that you had two different directors who are basically at war with one another. You should have already had an overarching, like with the MCU sort of thing, an overarching
Mm.
framework for where the story is going to go, but they didn't do that. So you had Ryan Johnson come in, basically try to burn everything down. Then you had J.J. Abrams come back and try to retcon little things here and there as a, F you to Ryan Johnson. And it's completely just made everything worse.
And we all suffer for it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering that for me. I really was just trying to hear if I
No,
was
yeah.
picking up on that correctly.
So
Because
touching back
I mean,
on Andor. Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that I think what would have made the sequel trilogy really good and especially relevant would have been if they had created after Palpatine a power vacuum that
Hmm.
somebody in the Empire was going to try and fill. That would have been the way to go. And
Yeah.
exactly like a Grand Moff Tarkin tried to take the place of Palpatine and what that was going to
yeah,
imply.
Yeah.
That would have
But what
been
they
a much better
It
direction.
would have been so
And
much better. Well, what they did was, I know that they've written books for like the in between era, but what they essentially did was, oh, the empire has fractured, and then they ran off into the outer reaches and then recollected and became the First Order. That seems a little too
yeah.
organized for how the empire got,
Oh
splintered.
no, I didn't think about that. You just mentioned it. I forgot that. I totally blanked out. They're called the First Order,
Hmm.
but that was the rebranding of the racism. Okay.
Yeah. So
Oh,
going back to Andor and the themes of Andor, I wanted to read. There were two things that I wanted to read tonight. The first one is
okay.
there is a character called Nymic. He is a revolutionary. So the characters within Andor are all revolutionaries, but Nymic is one of the rebel fighters who wrote a manifesto. It's like a Star Wars communist manifesto, and I want you to listen to this and hear how the striking similarities between what's happening today and what happened in Andor. There are times when the struggle seems impossible. I know this already. Alone, unsure, dwarfed by the scale of the enemy. Remember this. Freedom is a pure idea. It occurs spontaneously and without instruction. Random acts of insurrection are occurring constantly throughout the galaxy. There are whole armies, battalions that have no idea that they've already enlisted in the cause. Remember that the front of the rebellion is everywhere, or the frontier of the rebellion is everywhere, and even the smallest act of insurrection pushes our lines forward. And then remember this: the imperial need for control is so desperate because it is so unnatural. Tyranny requires constant effort. It breaks, it leaks. Authority is brittle. Oppression is the mask of fear. Remember that, and know this: the day will come when all of these skirmishes and battles, these moments of defiance, will have flooded the banks of the Empire's authority, and then there will be one too many. One single thing will break the siege. Remember this. Try. That is one of my favorite speeches ever because it perfectly describes how right now we're at. I know this isn't the very beginning of what of the United States fall into fascism. This has been a long road, but right now
Mm-hmm.
everything is in our face. Trump, the reason that you see these things, fascists are afraid of losing their power. They know that they are the minority. They know that they are weak. They know that they don't have the ability to maintain this power because they are outnumbered. So what
Yeah.
they do in those situations is scare tactics. One thing right after another. Boom, 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 in your face to keep you on your heels. Even though you know within your heart of hearts that if you all come together, you can defeat this system of fascism. They want to keep you on your heels so that way you are afraid to do anything. They use fear as a weapon. Even though the fascists are scared themselves, they use fear as a weapon to maintain control.
Yeah, that's how they seize power is through fear, exploitation of public anxiety,
Hmm.
rather. So it's interesting to see that, and it kind of parallels the times of like when you think of Nixon and what he's done in the past,
Hmm.
how it's kind of reminiscent of what our current president is doing now, bending laws just for power.
Hmm.
And, the media putting out one thing after another, just, in the interest of gaining public fear and anxiety.
Hmm.
So
I
it's pretty
think the
interesting.
case,
Same thing with Palpatine, too.
Mhm. I think the case studies for how fear is being used to manipulate is you look at the biggest example, Anakin Skywalker,
Hmm.
and how Palpatine was able to manipulate him with his fear of losing Padme and then his anger at losing his mother. But then we
Hmm.
look at a lot of the more relevant examples in Andor. We look at Cyril and his fear of not being able to fit in and that desperate need for acceptance from the
Hmm.
Empire. And then you look at Dedra Miro, who is very much afraid of losing status within the ISB and how
Hmm.
she is obsessive about finding what she calls access within Rail.
Hmm.
And
And she
then
likes that obsession of her judgment.
mhm. And Dedra Mira is a fascinating case study in right-wing women in general,
Oh my God, you
because
hit it right on the head.
yes, because she is the epitome of what happens, what these right-wing women will do to gain that proximity to power, and how it will eventually just cannibalize themselves in the
Hmm.
end.
Yeah.
It it is very much a survival tactic to put yourself next to these people so that you can try to be as close as possible, and that will prevent you from being violated, from experiencing gendered
Hmm.
violence. If we look
Hmm.
at the empire, it is very patriarchal. It is
Yep.
very male dominated. And
Hmm.
Detra, I think it is alluded to that she grew up in an orphanage, and I think it is alluded to that she experienced some kind of gendered violence. So she sought out
Hmm.
control in
Yep.
order to, not experience that ever again. So she dedicated herself, as one of the most loyal foot soldiers in order to protect herself, only to really be screwed by it in the end and turn against her very people, essentially
Yep.
at her people being Cyril, the one person who was willing to accept her as she was.
Yep.
And I think it is such like Dedra Miro's character is such a brilliant brilliant study in how right-wing women get to the point that they are in and what they will do to have that proximity to power.
Yeah. She was very Marjorie Taylor Greene to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like at every point, because like we've watched her, if we were talking about real life parallels, be ride or die until she realized she was getting screwed.
Yep.
Yep.
She scared the hell out of me when we were first introduced to Dedra. I'm like, strong women are, are they're incredibly attractive, but Dedra was like this strong. She was the coupling of being a strong woman, but she was terrifyingly ruthless. It
Mm-hmm.
scared the shit out of me because she didn't give a damn what kind of rules she had to break, what kind of protocol she had to go around to maintain her power. And I would say that Dedra is like um Dedra's like the antithesis of Clea. Dedra is the political compass opposite of Clea, Luthen's uh, apprentice. Like
Oh yeah.
they are like the polar opposites of one another, and it was fascinating seeing how Dedra is ruthless, Clea is ruthless for the rebellion. Dedra is ruthless for the Empire, Clea is ruthless for the rebellion, and it was fascinating to see that parallel between the two. And then there was
Yeah.
Bix thrown in there, who was like, I would say that Bix was a,
Biggs
we were
was
talking
more
about the
of
gender.
the average woman. She
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
experiences gendered violence, but and
yeah, that's
she
what I was
knows
going
that
to touch on. Yeah.
yeah, she experiences it and she knows that she wants to be free and she is trying to find her place in the rebellion. But because of everything she's experienced, she's not exactly an effective foot soldier. And
Yeah.
that's what she keeps being told. She is not an effective foot soldier. And I think what is so important about Bix's story is to admit that it's okay to not be a foot soldier.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
okay. If you are not capable of being a foot soldier, don't. Do not be a foot soldier because in the end, you're just going to end up hurting the cause. I think
Hmm.
what was really
Yeah.
beautiful about Bix's storyline was she ended up going back to, I can't remember the planet she went to, that was essentially a farm planet, and becoming a mother. And
Hmm.
how it was very beautiful, and how that is a very important role to have
Mm-hmm.
in trying to build a world out of fascism, to be able
Hmm.
to say, I have my ideals and I will raise the next generation to have my ideals to build a new future. I think that was a very beautiful storyline to create for Bix. Even if we didn't get like a lot of it touched on at the end, it was still important to show that she had her role. It just wasn't a foot soldier.
Yeah, it's important to have the people. It's obviously important to have foot soldiers on the front lines in the battles against fascism, but it's also important to have people who are going to raise the next generations,
Mm-hmm.
educators or parents or those that village that is there to raise the next generation of kids, because fascists are going to raise their kids to indoctrinate their kids within those systems, right? The empire was literally taking children from orphanages like Dedra and indoctrinating them into this system of fascism. It is incredibly important to have people within your lives that will not only be that village for you, but it's important to be in, if you are a parent, your job within that fight against fascism is to raise that next generation. There's still things that you can do from home. There's still things that you can do um, from your place for the overall movement. And one of those things is raising your kids. So it's not like you're not doing anything. Everyone has
Right.
their role in a rebellion.
Do you think that, like, because you just mentioned it, um, they were taking kids from orphanages and indoctrinating them, and the real world parallel would be how in our country they're trying to control abortions
Hmm.
and anything to do with a woman's body and
Yep.
whether she gives birth or not, because they're trying like it. A lot of things scream to like we need more foot soldiers
Yes.
and we need more. Yeah, okay.
Yes. Because we live under a system of capitalism that requires bodies. Capitalism is on its last leg right now because it can't sustain itself. That's why we're seeing um, the United States go into like a tailspin right now, because capitalism, we're in late stage capitalism. It every single year companies have to one up themselves. There's no like, okay, we've made enough money. Cool, we're good. We'll stay right here. No, that's not possible. You always have to one up yourself every single year, and it gets to a point where you cannot do it any longer. So this country is to the point where it cannot one up itself. That's why all of our social services are being cut by the government right now. They need that money to maintain the military. The United States is solely a world power because we impose our will on everyone, because we have one of the largest and best militaries in the world. It's all about being the bully with the big stick. So we're taking away all of the social services in this country to try and maintain our military power and to give the government officials more money. But it's not going to last.
I want to say, touching on what Cerius was asking, what Xavier answered, is it's not just about like taking abortion away, about the allegory that was Dedra Miro coming from an orphanage. It is why the more direct allegory is also, indoctrinating kids who are in poverty into the military. That is exactly what they want. They need more soldiers in the military. So what you do is you make sure you cut abortion access so that people are having more kids. You cut education as much as possible so that the only possible route for these people to go to, like Dedra Miro, people in poverty, is the military, and to build up in there. That's where they want people going.
Either the military is something that will service them towards military efforts in some way.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, like I was saying, capitalism cannot sustain itself. Not number one without one upping itself. But the birth rates in the United States are declining, and that terrifies the 1%, because exploitation is the only means of sustaining their system. They need bodies to keep the gears grinding, throw bodies into the gears, keep them going.
I think that birth rates are declining in a lot of countries in general. In the last 5 years, it's been talked about, and definitely in the United States, we can definitely attribute that to the terror regime and all that, right? But worldwide, if we're going to look at it, I think that has to do with patriarchy as a whole, and why women, like, the birth rates are declining, because men are in power worldwide, and we just do shit. So, yeah.
And it's like a lot of different countries around the world, you're seeing women gain more rights, more ability to stand up for themselves and speak out for themselves. And in that, they are saying, I don't want to have kids just to have kids. I'm not here to be your maid or your mom. And so I want to have a career. I want to go explore the world. I want to just live life for myself. I don't want to live life for kids. But it's always been, you're supposed to be the one in the home. You're supposed to be, that's your job, to be a mother. That's not their job. They have the ability to be a mother, but they have the choice. And I think that is a major reason you're seeing Republicans act out against women in particular, because women have choices and they're not choosing to be mothers, or they're not choosing Republican men. They're not choosing Republican men. They are undesirable.
I mean, if you see all the dating apps and the way the Republicans lie about who they voted for,
they're literally lying because nobody wants to be around them.
And then they out themselves anyway.
They always out themselves. I was watching a video just before we started the live about this couple talking about, well, when you're in a relationship with somebody with polar opposite political views, why the fuck would you be in a relationship with somebody who's a Nazi to begin with? That makes no sense.
I don't understand why people keep doing this thing where it's like they're political. It's not pizza toppings. It's not that simple.
It's not. I think the relationship was, the man was a Republican. You're literally in a relationship with a man that thinks, number one, you shouldn't have the right to vote. And on a whole nother level, Republicans are actively trying to lower the age of consent to 14 years old. These are men who are okay with pedophilia. This shit is weird. Why would you be in a relationship with somebody like that to begin with? It's and somebody pointed it out. One of the white people in my comment section, they said that because of the privilege that white people live their lives in, they treat politics like it's a hobby. They treat politics like it's, going to play badminton or something like that. It's not a life or death situation for them. So that's why they can be in relationships with people who have differing political views, because it's not going like we're starting to see it incrementally push more towards affecting white women. But on these, as a whole, white women have been protected under these, patriarchal systems to a point. So we're, they have never had a problem with protecting those systems. Now, because it's pushing closer and closer to home for them, that's why you're seeing liberal white or conservative white women and liberal white women be a little more antsy about these things. Conservative white women are still thinking that they're protected under the umbrella of patriarchy. They're still getting those little crumbs off the table. But it's like Serena Joy in Handmaid's Tale. They she thinks
Oh,
she's
boy.
the architect of this. Serena Joy was the architect of the system, literally, but she got no credit for it. She was the architect of the system. She was the one who came up with the XYZ. And then when she tried to speak up underneath that system, they cut her finger off because a woman's place is in the kitchen. You are not allowed to talk. Even so, what if you created this system? So what if you're a brilliant professor or politician or whatever? I can't remember what she was. It does not matter. You gave your contribution, but now you are supposed to be in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's going to come back to bite them in the ass, and then they'll cry foul.
Well, see, let me ask. I got another question, y'all. Maybe you can help me out. That type of behavior, that type of treatment, is that how you end up with a Dedra?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
That's how
that
you
is how
get it.
you end up
Okay.
with a Dedra. That is how you get a Dedra. I mean, that kind of treatment of, you saw what happened to her at the end of Andor, spoiler alert. She was essentially railed by Krennic, even though she was the one who got all the information that eventually led to Luthen, right? Even though she was the one who did all that footwork, figuring out who Axis was, even though she was the one who ultimately confronted Luthen, she got thrown under the fucking bus. She got steamrolled, and she eventually got sent to a damn prison camp.
The same prison where Andor was.
That
That was the
we
craziest part.
realized was building the Death Star.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Damn.
craziest part. But something you mentioned earlier that I want to go back to, where you were saying white people treat politics like it's a hobby. That's essentially what we see the Senate reduced to in Andor, right? We see, and especially the elite of Coruscant, they treat it like it's a hobby because it doesn't affect them. And the only ones we see doing the work are Mon Mothma and Vel,
And
because
then you
they
had
are
the
funding the
senator,
rebellion.
the senator
Bail
from
Organa,
Gorman. The senator from
yes.
Gorman at one point was treating it kind of like it was a hobby too, but then it started affecting him personally because his people are under attack. And then he's like, "Oh no, wait, you guys, I need help. I really do need help." And then he starts to get more and more desperate. And then it gets to that point where Gorman, like, we know that the Empire, the Empire said it in the show, it was a front to mine the resources on Gorman. They wanted Calkite.
Yep.
It was Calkite. I fucking love the Calkite little monologue he does. That's one of my favorite parts of the show. But they wanted the Calkite for the Death Star. And this was a top secret project. So they had to create a false flag, essentially, a reason to be on Gorman. And slowly but surely, they worked their way into creating they wanted a rebellion on Gorman. They wanted a reason to wipe these people out or, take them out of the equation so that way they could take all of the resources on Gorman behind the scenes with nobody asking any questions.
It's what we were saying about organized protests like this and how the Empire used that to essentially create propaganda to say these people are savages, because they sent these baby-faced, I think they were like security officers out there, and then essentially
Cops, yeah, they
sniped
sent the
one of
baby,
them.
the
They sent the baby cops and then sniped one of them to create this false flag so that they could turn the propaganda arm and, basically get the reason they needed for the Empire to be like, okay, we got to go into Gorman because they're dangerous. look what they did to our people. And they're young, fresh-faced, and attractive, and it was all done very intentionally. And then you have all in there Cyril as well. And
Cyril.
his revelation
Cyril
that
was
he
fucking
was
funny.
being
Cyril was
used.
funny as hell.
Cyril was a brilliant character of incel
Yeah.
culture. It like
Yes.
just
Yeah,
perfectly
absolutely.
encapsulated what happened with incel culture. And
Mhm.
I knew that his arc needed to end the way it did, but I really did want to see him like flesh out his, you know, his realization. Like I really did want that to be a thing,
Yeah.
but I understood
He
where
was
they took
right.
his
He
arc
was
and I
right
respect it.
there
Right.
on the cusp.
Maybe that's why I'm so unsatisfied, because I was like, he really needs to learn something. Like he didn't catch enough for me to.
I think that's it though. I think Cyril really did realize, oh shit, I've been on the wrong side of history this whole time.
Right.
But the way that incels work, he was so caught up in his anger with how
About those two
Cassian,
security guards being killed. Yeah.
yeah, about
That.
how
Yeah.
his entire story started with Cassian trying to hunt down Cassian, and he felt like he got onced over by Cassian. As soon as he saw Cassian, all of this growth that he had made, all of this progress he had made, went out the fucking window. It was back to square one for him because nope,
Mm.
he had a vendetta against the rebellion, this particular person in the rebellion, and he wouldn't be satisfied until there was an some sort of resolution, and that resolution happened to be a laser going through his head.
I think Sid, you said
Listen.
something.
Yeah.
Sorry, real quick. You said something about how. Let me just say this. This is what's been on my mind with real life things. So originally, a lot of people, don't know this, but I'm originally from Chicago. Okay, and I now live in Portland, and all I can think about is how they are trying to get us out on these streets so that they have a reason to come here, like they did in Andor. Like they're just really trying to get us out there, and I'm not. Yeah.
One thing
It's
I
such
wanted
a
to touch on.
double-edged sword. I'm
Right?
sorry, I
Like,
just want to say real quick, like it's a double-edged sword of you have to be out there resisting, but at the same time, they are looking for a reason,
Yep.
and it's understandable why, they wanted to do the protest in the way they did to make sure it was non-violent, but at the same time, you went and worked with the system that is essentially meant to bite you in the ass,
Yeah. Well, at the same
But
time,
you do have to be acutely aware that they're trying to get you out there. They're trying to get the reason,
I would definitely feel more comfortable being back in Chicago and being out there than I would here.
Yeah.
Because I'm surrounded by too many people. Too many violence is just not the answer, people. And I'm not saying I don't think that violence is the answer, but I think sometimes it's the answer.
Yeah.
So it really.
That actually leads right into the next point that I was going to talk about. What I loved about Andor is how it really focuses on the cost of human life. Like we know that morally we don't want to see other people die. We don't want to die ourselves. But when you're fighting an oppressor, a fascist system, it is inevitable because that no revolution has ever been won without violence, without the cost of human life. Luthen understood that. Clea understood that. Cassian understood that. They all went out into the world knowing that any day could be their last because somebody could snitch on them. They could get caught. I mean, any number of things could go wrong, but they always stood 10 toes down because they understood this shit has to be done. If nobody else is going to do it, I have to. What I don't like about the No Kings protest is everybody talking about violence is never the answer. And the answers I kept getting from liberals who were mad at me for calling this out. Well, I'm afraid. I don't want to die. I don't want to give them a reason. Fascists
Everyone's
don't
fucking
need a
afraid.
reason.
They don't need a reason.
Yeah, they don't need a reason. They want to get a reason from you, but they're going to do it anyway. They're going to grab power anyway. We're watching Trump do it bit by bit. He's just wanting us to get out in the street so he can do it whole hog all at once, but he's doing it bit by bit anyway. And that leads into the speech that Luthen gave to I can't remember his name, the redhead guy, the other ISB agent. He gave this incredible this incredible monologue to him because the dude is afraid. Like he's a mole within the empire. If he is caught, it's donezo. Absolutely donezo. And he's terrified. And Luthen is like, bro, you told me that you were in it. Are you still in it? And he says, calm, kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I've made my mind a sunless place. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago, from which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, they've set me on a path from which there is no escape. I yearned to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I looked down, there was no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. And the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything. And I think liberals don't understand that we're not in this fight for ourselves. Because of where we are in this fight against fascism, we probably will not see that sunrise for ourselves. We will probably die under this system of fascism. But we have to fight. We have to put our comfortability on the line. We have to put our bodies on the line for our kids and our kids' kids. That's what this fight is for. It's for other people. That selfishness coming into this from the perspective of me, I, is why there will never be change. You cannot be selfish when you're fighting against a system of oppression. You cannot think solely about yourself. Everything is about intersectionality. And that's another thing I loved about Andor. There was all of these intersecting pathways that came together for one rebellion. You had Mon Mothma trying to do this from a political approach, and that was ineffective as shit. She thought she could do it just by... Yeah, she knew it. She thought she could just be that good senator who says, no, Palpatine, what you're doing is not nice. And it did not work. You had people like Luthen, Clea, and Cassian who were doing the dirty deeds, but they weren't, they still had sort of a bit of ethics behind it, you know. They were still ethical in sort of some of the ways that they did their dirty deeds. And then you had Saw Gerrera. Saw Gerrera did not give a Saw Gerrera didn't give a flying fuck.
I love that dude, but he terrifies me. I'm like, do I have the strength to follow a Saw Gerrera? Am I that one?
Saw
like
was
Cassian, maybe I'll be sneaky, but Saw will just jump out the plane.
Saw had the loyalty of his men because they knew that he didn't give a shit. He would literally, like, that scene where he figured out who the traitor was in his crew. Saw is so one of the reasons that one of the problematic things about Saw is his inability to trust. He is so incredibly paranoid. You know, like you could argue that that's a good thing in that particular fight against fascism, but it led him to ostracizing other people who, you know, wanted to be allies in a sense. The rebellion was trying to, Mon Mothma and people like Luthen and whatnot, they're trying to ally with him in different operations. And because he is so untrusting, he's incredibly far left, like anarchist type shit. Yeah. And he was
happened to him?
So you've seen Rogue One, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, sorry, I meant like,
like what?
Like, so, what happened to him to make him that way?
He lost family. He watched
but how somebody had to betray him in such a way, because they don't give you the full story, but like he is top tier untrustworthy.
Oh yeah, man, the man is like, I love his character because he's very much an anarchist and does not trust he fucking despises the empire, but he hates how toothless and feckless the talking heads of the rebellion are. Saw Gerrera is, I'm gonna get shit done. If y'all gonna sit there and talk, I'm going in, I'm gonna do it. And that's why he doesn't want to work with the rebellion all the time, because they would rather discuss things in a committee. And he knows that the rebellion at times, especially when it comes to people like Mon Mothma, they will, they know that they have to use violence, but, we will try other means before we get to violence. Saw Gerrera already knows we can't do that. We can't do that. Just go.
Right.
Just
But I
go.
mean, that's the
Just get in
point you
there.
made about everyone having their role, and the, various rebels that we see. Saw had a very important role in finding out about the Death Star
Yep.
from Jyn Erso's dad.
Hmm.
Galen Erso.
Yeah.
He was the one who got that intel. And even though he was unwilling to share it, it's very important why. Because if he had shared it, he hadn't been so exceedingly paranoid and made sure that the person who got that intel was absolutely trustworthy,
Hmm.
we probably never would have gotten the plans to the Death Star.
Yeah. Yeah. And as
Right.
annoying as it is, his lack of trust and whatnot, like intersectionality. You have all of these different parts of the rebellion that come together. It may seem dysfunctional at times, but it's still necessary to have all of these different parts because it's not a monolith.
Interesting. Something else I thought about too that Andor kind of showed as well. Um, and I think that's transactionalism. Like between, so if you take the characters like Mon Mothma, and she had transactional acquaintances and friendships
Hmm.
supposedly, and that's why she couldn't always get the backing, and that's why certain people weren't in the fight, and not just with her, but all around. You were saying that like you said, not everyone's going to be a Saw Gerrera, but not everybody's going to be a Mon Mothma. And then when it comes to liberalism here in the real world, they don't have to worry about certain things like that other senator. But it was also, they bowed out because their friendship was transactional to begin with. They weren't going to get anything out of it.
Yep.
So they didn't stick by that side.
Hmm. And that's why both in Star Wars and in the real world, you have to, like, too many people are, because of the way capitalism works, we've been taught that every interaction, every relationship is supposed to be transactional. What can you do for me? What can I do for
Mm-hmm.
you? And that's not the way that we naturally operate. Empathy is a natural state of being. We, like the beginning of time, human beings were empathetic beings. They lived in villages with one another. A village took care of its people, its children, everyone came together. That my kids would be considered by other parents their kids, and so on and so forth. Everyone took care of one another, and it was never like, okay, I'm going to give you this, these supplies, but what are you going to give me in return? It
Mm-hmm.
Capitalism has taught us that everything has to have a price,
Yeah.
and that carries over into revolution. You think, okay, but I have to be gaining something out of this, right? That's not the way that's not our default state of being. And once people are able to recognize that and unpack those issues that have been
Mm-hmm.
taught to us, especially as Americans from day one under this system of capitalism, then we can be better. We cannot ever move forward until people stop being selfish. And
Yeah.
if I'm being honest, the past several months have shown me that that's not happening right now.
Mm-mm.
It's going to take time to build it up. It was something that, I was thinking about earlier today is, you know, the way that, the system is trying to breed out empathy, especially capitalism, is trying to breed out empathy to make you apathetic, is essentially becoming ingrained in our DNA to where it is becoming an epigenetic part of our coding, this level of apathy. And it takes, going back to Bix's storyline and how she was wrapped up, it takes actually raising the next generation again and again to be empathetic, to teach them what the world should be before we get there. From the moment that the Republic fell, to the empire finally falling was decades long. Luke and Leia lived a whole life and died before the
Yeah.
empire finally fell. It takes time to actually do that because it took time for the Republic to fall in the first place.
Well, I would say
Mm.
that the same way. Remember how I said earlier that the reason we're here right now is because the Confederacy and the Nazis were never held accountable. That's the
Yeah.
same thing that happened with the First Order. So the Empire fell, but they actually show this in a couple of the shows, like the Mandalorian and stuff. Instead of holding former Imperials accountable, they try to incorporate them into the system. Oh, well,
Yep.
I know that you were working for the Empire, but we're going to extend you some grace and you can come, use your skills that you were using for the Empire and you can come use them for the New Republic now. And
And
then
then they're
what
surprised.
happens? Those people that were in the Empire still have their connections in the Empire. They still have those biases and beliefs, that racism, that bigotry, but now they are fully integrated into the New Republic. They were not held accountable. You had after the Civil War, slave owners were paid off for the slaves that they lost. After World War II, there were a few bigwigs here and there who were hanged after Nuremberg, but for the most part, like 90 some odd percent of the Nazis moved to different parts of the world and integrated into other systems, like becoming rocket scientists and becoming fashion designers and car designers. The Nazis moved everywhere and brought their beliefs with them, and it was meshed into the new places that they went, got poisoned with that ideology. So
Yeah.
that the First Order came out of this ineffectual, or this inability to hold the Empire accountable. They fomented, uh it was the Empire's version of fomenting rebellion. Like behind the scenes, they're literally taking bits and pieces that, uh, to the outer rim to rebuild themselves. The Republic literally brought it on themselves by saying, "No, we're gonna extend them grace and forgive them, and now they're one with us. They're friends."
You know, that we do have this, like, they do keep trying to portray us as the turn the other cheek people
Mm-hmm.
all the time. I'm like, I don't think I can. Like,
Mm-mm.
I would think we would know better now to want to hold these people accountable. The
But like,
majority of us.
but like, even if if Donald Trump's regime were to fall tomorrow, right? Just
Hmm.
because Nancy Pelosi actually ended it when she ripped that crown, she defeated fascism. So if that were to happen, right, and Democrats were to gain power again, I know two things would happen. Number one, all of the horrible policies and things that Donald Trump put into place, Democrats would do nothing to redact those. They would do nothing to retract those. Every single time some Republican comes into power and does XYZ horrible thing, a Democrat comes into power, they don't take those things away. They say they will. They have the power to do so, but they don't take it away. It just becomes the new norm. And that's what annoys me about Democrats, the fact that everything that Democrats have done has been, we just play by the rules and everything is the norm when, we follow the status quo. And what Donald Trump is doing right now, he doesn't follow the status quo. The Democrats had the ability to codify these things, to set it in stone, to make it the law, but they chose not to do so because anybody that comes after me is gonna do the right thing. They're gonna follow the rules.
No, they're
And then
not.
Donald Trump comes in as the person who said he was going to, be the maverick, be different, and he's not following the status quo. He's not following these rules set by people who were politicians, people who grew up as politicians. Donald Trump, I'll give him that. He does not follow the rules because he's not a politician. He is a swindling businessman, and it shows.
Yep. Yeah.
And we allowed him in again.
Yep.
That's the truth. We
Yeah.
had one job and we allowed him in again. I hope the lesson is learned. That's all I gotta say.
It won't be.
But I mean, the other thing I was thinking too is that the status quo is usually based on capitalism and still benefits the Democrats in some way. So
Oof.
that's why some of them are apprehensive to do anything. If
Mhm.
they're like, well, maybe if I just be quiet, I can make a quick buck.
That's why you don't see people like Hakeem Jeffries, Cory Booker, Nancy Pelosi out there advocating for, like actually advocating, putting their boots on the ground, being at like actual protests and things like that, because they're getting paid. Hakeem Jeffries, Cory Booker, all of them are bought and paid for by AIPAC, by Israel. They're bought and paid for. You don't see them out there marching and doing the work that needs to be done because they've already made their bag. They don't need to do anything. They can be ineffectual. They can act like they care, but they don't have to put their bodies on the line because it doesn't matter. We're still good. When Republicans are in office, Democrats make a shit ton of money. It doesn't matter. They're just going to make money. Nancy Pelosi has made most of her wealth through insider trading. Something that would be illegal for normal everyday citizens would put us in jail. Our people in Congress can literally do it with no consequences. They caught a dude on video. I can't remember what state house it was. They caught him on video in the fucking stateroom on his laptop trading.
Okay.
But it's not illegal for them to do this. It's unethical and a no-no, but nobody ever brings it up or holds them accountable for it. They've made their wealth off of things that normal everyday people would get in trouble for. It's do as I say, not as I do.
Absolutely. Rules for thee, but not for me.
Shit makes me tired.
And they're all in a different tax bracket, too. They don't normally have to go through the same things as the average person does. And so they're just so far gone. And yet these are the people in charge that we look to. We need to stop looking to them.
They're all so old.
Absolutely.
Mitch
Yeah,
McConnell
these are people
falling
who
out
lived
on
through the Jim
floor.
Crow era. I saw that.
So
I was like, darn it.
Literally did it on purpose so he wouldn't have to answer a question. You saw him he grabbed his aide and then fell. He did it on purpose so he wouldn't have to answer the question.
That aide is better than me. Oh, my arm would move so fast.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah. Don't let it
That
be the
aide
stairs.
could have made the best power grab in history. Could have made the best power grab in history, but no.
Right. Yeah,
And
but he
then,
black though. He gotta
we
look
keep
out for
saying
himself.
things like, term limits. They need to have term limits and whatnot. But I don't ever see, like, you'll see people, Democrats, parrot these points. Well, that is true. We do need term limits. You don't see them doing anything to put these plans into power. Even when they have the majority, what we were just talking about earlier today, Biden at the end of his term was the Supreme Court ruled he essentially had unlimited powers as a king. He had the ability to prevent Trump from coming into office. Trump is a felon. He could have easily said felons can't become the president. He could have, that would have caused an uprising. You have the military. Who the fuck cares?
Right.
God damn, you have the National Guard. The fuck? That makes no sense. Well,
Which is how you're supposed to use them.
Yeah. They're the baseline thing would have been to, they had the ability to stack the Supreme Court. They had the ability to say a felon can't become president. They had the ability to codify Roe versus Wade, but they did not do it because, again, they keep in their minds, number one, they still benefit from these systems. And number two, in their minds, the status quo. If a president is a normal person, they'll just follow the rules. It's written down on a piece of paper. It's not chipped into the stone yet, but it's written down on a piece of paper. So they should be able to, they should follow those rules that are written down on that piece of paper.
But you know what? To bring this back to Star Wars really fast is these fair weather Democrats are another allegory for the Jedi, where if they had been more aggressive in making sure Palpatine didn't get to power,
Oh my God.
it could have been
Oh, man.
prevented. You know, if they
Listen.
had actually done right by Anakin Skywalker and addressed his problems, this shit could have been prevented.
Well, Anakin, we
Yeah.
can have a
But
conversation
no.
about Anakin, and Anakin is another example of that incel culture.
Thank you.
Yes.
He's a
I was just
whole
gonna
other
say.
example of that incel culture. Because the second, I enjoy episode 2, but the shit creeps me out because Padme should have nipped that shit in the bud from the get
Mm-hmm.
go. Padme should have been like, yeah, no, it's been cool seeing you, Anakin, but I gotta go. But
Right.
no, he comes home after slaughtering an entire camp of Tusken Raiders and says, I murdered them, the men, the women, and the children. I hate them. And she
Poor
comforts him.
baby.
Yeah.
She
That's what I'm like.
Babies him.
oh my goodness, I need to be here for him. And you see that white women do that shit all the fucking time in real life. White men will go out and do this horrific shit, and instead of saying, whoa, therapy, I'm out of here,
Right.
they will come
Right.
in and, but you don't understand. He's the Republican group chat, the young Republican group chat, 40 years
Oh.
old, 24 to
He's
40
just a
years old.
Being
baby.
They're
kids. He's just
kids.
oh,
They're
so gross.
kids. You don't understand. They're just kids. In Padme's mind, not only is she's attracted to him, but at the same time, he's
Also
still
weird.
a kid. Yeah, also weird. In her mind, he's still that little boy that I knew on Tatooine. That's weird, Padme. That's weird.
Right.
Why are
Also,
you
Really?
coddling him?
You run a planet and you a senator and you put up with this?
Yes. Padme had
Whole
options.
ass senator,
Padme had
whole ass
options.
queen, did not have to have Anakin Skywalker.
But
I
Right.
mean,
it
He
was
ain't that
her
cute.
whole breakup dress should have been the whole clue of, I can get it.
no.
Her breakup dress should have been the clue, but no.
You know what
Like,
gets
girl,
me?
stand up.
You know what gets me before they even go to Tatooine? Padme is sitting there, and this brings up that conversation of it doesn't matter what you're wearing, right?
Right.
It does not matter what you're wearing.
It does
But
go to kindness.
but going to
Being
going
kind.
to going to Naboo, telling Anakin the whole time, Anakin, no, we cannot be a thing. And then the final night on Naboo, fireside chat, walks in with this thing on. I'm like,
Gorgeous
Padme,
corset
what
with the
are you
high
doing?
neckline and the
What are you
tight
doing?
skirt. It
This
is
boy
you
is
are
already like scratching at the glass
drooling.
for you.
Right.
Why are you? What are you doing, Padme? If you are genuinely not interested in Anakin Skywalker, is this a test? Are you testing him?
I mean,
It
and
was
the
very
boy
much
already has
what
no
you
common sense or
said.
training.
No, has no common sense. He just speaks his mind. Anakin was
He was raised with
struggling.
monks. He was
Oh.
raised with monks
He was raised with monks. He was too old. He was already
and
past
supposed
the
to be
age.
celibate.
He had trauma out the wazoo, and they never addressed
Taken
it
from
because
his mother,
Jedi
the only person who ever gave him happiness.
are not supposed
That's
to,
what's missing.
have the connection and the emotional connection. They dropped the ball with Anakin so bad. He needed therapy. They didn't give it
That's
to him.
what I was gonna say. That's what's missing from Star Wars. People needed therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly,
Therapy.
where was the
Needed
therapist
therapy.
in Star Wars?
Right.
Why was there no Jedi Temple therapist? You literally have Jedi going out on these dangerous ass missions, protecting the galaxy and whatnot.
Right.
They need therapy. They use
I
their
mean, even
they
Star
use their
Trek knew to
lightsabers
have a counselor on board.
right. You gotta have a Deanna Troy or something.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah.
They have a cult-like mentality. I've
Yes.
always thought that
Yeah.
about the Jedi.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I mean, well, look at the robes,
They-
the boots, and the.
But they
Yeah.
are, though.
It's giving cult.
They-
Yeah, literally.
They are
And they're
cults.
like,
I
they
mean,
were-
there's
they
a
were-
conversation to be had about all religions are essentially cults in one way or another.
Mhm.
But yes.
Yeah, but there were several instances where you did see the Jedi hold, other members of the Jedi accountable for crimes, right? But those were extreme
If they were
things. Like you had
If they were women.
I can't remember what's her. Yes, I can't
If
remember
they were-
what's
yep.
if they were women. What's
If
Ahsoka
they
basically got
were
ousted for
women.
something she didn't do. Barriss Offee was a terrorist, and they held her accountable. But the Jedi, for the most part, acted like cops. Anything another Jedi did, they would come in and back them up. You saw that in the Acolyte, like for real.
There it is.
They were fucking
Back them up if they were men.
Oh, they were
They
doing
backed them up in a bit, and they certainly didn't like the group of women in power they found.
Mhm. Yeah, they did not like the Force witches.
They
Not
did
at
not
all.
like it. That
Because
was
in
the
their minds,
entire
nobody
issue.
else should have access to the Force in this way.
Mhm.
Even though these witches were minding their business, no.
Raising their
We're the
kids,
only
yeah.
ones that should have, any access to like a virgins in the Force. Ooh, that shit made me mad.
I just
Yeah,
have to
it
say
made me mad too.
that the problem that was being portrayed in Star Wars also emulated, and in the Acolyte was also emulated in why it got canceled here in real life, is it was very woman centric, especially Black woman centric, in
Yep.
the witches being the victims and the Jedi, a very patriarchal society. If you think about when you see Jedi, for every one woman that is a Jedi you see, there's about 3 to 4 men.
And the council is
It's
made up
very
of mostly
skewed.
men.
Man, I was just gonna say,
Exactly.
I think there's maybe one woman that I've seen on the Jedi Council, and there have probably been more throughout history. But for the most part, when we see the Jedi Council on screen, it's made up of mostly men.
Yes, it has always been mostly men. So then you have the witches, this coven, and they're doing their own thing, and they are Force witches. It is a problem. And especially when they become mothers and they use the Force without the help of men to become mothers. It is a big problem. And that was a big problem to the toxic Star Wars fandom that couldn't bear to see that. Not just the fact that the Jedi were the issue, but the fact that the women were the victims, because of course they were.
Yep.
That always kills me, though, the fandom with the whole, if it's a woman who has any sort of decision-making role or any type of power, they're like, or a person of color, whatever, like, this is unbelievable in this space wizard fantasy.
Yeah.
But this green dude with tentacles for a face is like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. No, he's the one. He's the one. Like I like the sequel trilogy. We'll touch back on that. I had my issues with the sequel trilogy. I still loved the character of Rey because it was a fascinating point of view. It was a fascinating storyline to see this again. You have a character who is like Luke Skywalker, who comes out of nowhere. They do have a lineage that is incredibly powerful. It felt very Star Wars, very Star Warsy. That doesn't mean that there weren't issues in the sequel trilogy that annoy the hell out of me, like the people of color being sidelined. Holdo, the command. God damn, Holdo. I thought the character of Holdo could have been an incredibly powerful character. She could have been up there with Leia Organa as a general, but her whole plot line of not communicating drove me up a wall. You could have easily told Poe Dameron what's going on, and he would have understood it. He would have been, he would have been right there with you. Poe is not the person who's going to just full on disrespect you as a leader. He's gonna listen and try and work with you in the best way that he can as a subordinate. But because Holdo was literally withholding information the whole time, thought I need to go out and be the rebel and do what I need to do. There was no reason whatsoever that Holdo had to withhold all of this information. None. It's like in horror movies and stuff like that, when there could be a really simple explanation, XYZ, as to what's happening, but then they go into this long roundabout sort of answer, and it's like, you're wasting time.
Absolutely.
You're wasting time.
That's every episode of Supernatural.
Oh. Sydney got me into Supernatural. That shit makes me so mad.
Yeah,
Could have easily
a high-ranking
explained.
officer too. Like, you would think that her communication skills would be a lot better.
Yes.
Just girl, stand up. There was no reason for her to withhold any information. I don't get that.
But
and you have the Empire or the First Order on your tail the whole time. Literally, like that's my other thing. That when did bombardment in space become a thing? They're firing. They're chasing. We don't have the ability to go faster. We're chasing them and we're bombarding them as we go super slow through space. Where did that come from?
No.
But yeah, she's withholding information that is pertinent to what is going down right now. Like, you can tell Poe, we can get things going and have these other side missions and things going on and be on one page together. But then it ends up Holdo having to sacrifice herself because of a lack of communication.
That's
There was
the
no
thing
reason.
Unnecessary.
about
That's sad.
You were a high-ranking officer. What was
Yeah.
the
No,
reason?
It seemed unnecessary.
a-
Like, Holdo could have survived. There was no reason for her to have to sacrifice herself.
Here's the thing, though. There is a reason, though, and it's because in this system of sexism, you cannot have a strong female character who is not tragic. If you come to think about it, Padme,
Mm,
she is powerful, she's outspoken, but she is tragic. She falls for Luke, and that gets her killed. Holdo,
Or Anakin,
she withheld this information, for whatever flight, and then she had to sacrifice herself. Leia, even though she is clearly a very good, capable general, in the end, she had to die at the thought of her son. And it had to be
God.
tragic. Every female
Mm.
character that they write, you have to write them as tragic. Even
Yeah, that's typically
that's
the
why
reason with scripts and everything.
Mhm.
yeah, like
Yeah.
even with Rey, even though she didn't have it, you had to watch her struggle with her emotional imbalance,
It's
right?
true.
hmm
You have to
Yeah.
make these women tragic in order to make them palatable to a male audience. So that's
And
why
on
when we get
the
the
other side of that,
Acolyte,
men are allowed to be whiny.
exactly.
So Luke
But that's why
Skywalker
when we
was
got
whiny as shit.
so
Yeah.
fucking whiny. So was
Anakin
Anakin.
too.
Let me just say about the Acolyte, that was why they hated it so much, because Mother Anastasia was fucking
Woo.
strong as shit.
She
Okay?
was
And she was
amazing.
murdered.
So
She was
cool.
murdered by Soul. And
Yeah.
then we also have Osha, who is radically angry. We watch her bleed a kyber crystal after she realizes the truth about Soul, her father figure, what he did to
I don't
her
understand how
family.
people were mad at that because it was so fucking cool. Oh my
Oh my
god.
It was
God.
pretty sick.
It was amazing. But
The
that's why they
lightsaber
had the
battles were
issue with the
incredible.
Acolyte. Like when they gave Osha her right to be angry instead of just tragically sad,
Hmm.
they were pissed about it.
Yep.
The only way to make these characters palatable, like Holdo, like Leia, like Rey, like Padme, is to make them sad. That's the whole
Is
point
it?
of the why. Yes.
I'm
Go
saying, didn't
right
they
ahead,
do
Jared.
that? Didn't they do that to Ahsoka in some ways too?
Yeah.
Like, not even just from the movies, but even in the recent show, it was just kind of tragic. Like, she never got a moment's peace or happiness or anything.
No,
So
in the new Ahsoka show, what pissed me off, right? Ahsoka has always been an incredibly headstrong character,
yeah,
like strong-willed, don't need nobody. She learned from Anakin Skywalker. That's why she is the powerful character that she is. She's like, her swordplay skills are almost as good as Anakin Skywalker, the best swordsman in the Jedi Order, right?
yeah,
So the Ahsoka show introduced that turmoil to Ahsoka that really did not need to be there.
yeah.
She, at this point, she's already faced down Vader. She's already
Exactly.
she's already faced him down and in Rebels and whatnot. Already dealt with, confronting her past. Ahsoka is a Jedi master. Like, if the Jedi Order was still around at
Mhm.
this point, she is a Jedi master at this point. So they introduced those, like, she's questioning herself and she's just unsure, and it just felt so uncharacteristic of Ahsoka. And then you have
Yeah.
that shift at the end of the season where she gets the new clothing, and you always tell that there's a shift in their character when they get new clothing. So
Right.
she got the new clothing, and now she's Ahsoka
She's gotta
Prime.
have a
Yeah.
makeover.
Yeah.
She's
Honestly,
a brand
they
new
did the
woman. Give her a makeover.
right now. I'm powerful.
Yeah.
She was powerful before. They did the same thing to Sabine. Actually, when you think about it.
Yes.
Because Sabine ain't no joke either. She doesn't question herself. She started off headstrong and like very like, I'm Sabine, I will shoot you.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of lady.
But then they give her the lightsaber, and it's like, oh no, she's so feeble. She doesn't know how to wield it. And
Like,
I understand that there's, like the way that they've changed the lore, you can't just pick up a lightsaber and just
right.
go at it. Like I do like that they've introduced this element of lightsabers have some sort, if you're not a natural or a force wielder, there is this element of heaviness to a lightsaber that
Hmm.
you have to learn. We see that in the Mandalorian too. He gets the
Right.
dark saber, and it's like,
Dark
oh
saber.
shit, what is this unwieldy thing? I love that. I do love that because it makes the ability to use a lightsaber more um it shrinks that pool down. It's not like some random urchin or Andor could come around and just grab a lightsaber
Yeah.
and go. It
Yeah.
makes people like Andor and Luthen and Clea even more amazing and powerful in their own right. These people don't need lightsabers to bring about change. But the way that they did Sabine, if she'd already been on that journey, kind
Yeah.
of sort of knowing that she was kind of force sensitive. So I feel like it shouldn't have been this. She shouldn't have been unsure of herself in the way that she was. You
And that's
know?
what I meant too. Like, because even if she couldn't wield it all the time, she definitely could have shot a few more people.
Oh yeah.
Because
Oh
I know she
yeah.
knows how to do that.
Yeah. Even Ezra. That's what when he
Yep.
first got into lightsaber combat. He was using a blaster and a
Yep.
lightsaber at the same time. Sabine should have been a shoo-in at that. But
Yep.
she kind of became reliant solely on the lightsaber, which is weird. You're a Mandalorian. You
Like, why would
use
you
the
do that?
skills
Yeah.
that you have. Man. I Andor. We didn't touch on. We didn't touch on the. I think we kind of mentioned it, but that um Cassian's mom, being sort of the
Marva.
catalyst.
Oh,
Yeah,
Marva.
Marva being the
Yes.
catalyst
Yeah.
for his
Mhm.
his he was a scoundrel basically.
Mhm.
I like to compare Cassian to kind of like Aladdin. He was
Mhm.
a scoundrel, grew up in petty crime and things like that, and it was like Luthen sort of focused his abilities to the correct cause. Marva was the catalyst, the starting point. She saw this orphaned boy, took him in, and began to teach him that, there are these, we need to combat these systems. She didn't push him into being a rebel. That was Luthen that really was like, you're gonna either do it or you're not gonna do it. But Marva literally instilled these sort of subliminal ideas into Cassian so that way when he met Luthen, it was like, okay, I know what Marva taught me and I know what I need to do now.
Marva
So,
is what Bix is going to be.
mhm,
She is what Bix is going to be once Bix had her child. Marva saw a child and was like, I may not be a foot soldier. She never was a foot soldier for the rebellion, even though she knew, and she said in her speech, her death speech, that if I could do it all over again, I would wake up early and fight these bastards. But she did have a role, and that was raising Cassian and teaching
mhm,
Cassian that the Empire is wrong. And
yep,
then Cassian watching his father figure die at the hands of the Empire, and then watching his friends die, and then having been victimized himself, he was taught by Marva that Empire is wrong and that
mhm,
fighting for a cause is good.
yep,
And that's why I think it's so good that Andor closed on Bix being a mother, because it is essentially showing she is going to do what Marva also did for
mhm.
Cassian. Bix is going to raise a rebel.
Wow, you really put that home for me. Thank you, because I didn't really think about that, and that makes so much more sense. And I feel better about it. But
Yeah.
it also goes back to what you said, Xavier, about how people need to stop being selfish and be ready to not see the benefits in this lifetime, but be ready to make it better for the next one.
Yeah, because
And we
Marva
need
was
we
one of
need we
those.
need more Marvas.
Yeah, Marva was one of those. She was a daughter of Ferrex. They,
Mm,
the daughters of Ferrex, from my understanding, were, anti-fascist. And they taught their kids and taught others about how the system of the Empire was wrong and how it needed to be fought against. And like Sydney was saying, that wasn't Marva's role wasn't foot soldier. Her role was educator, mother. She instilled those ideas into Cassian that he can't be selfish for a long time, but when you're younger, you're thinking about yourself, me, myself, and I. The next moment, what am I going to do to feel good about myself, and how am I going to, make my way in this world? And that's what we really saw when we were first introduced to Cassian. In the series, when we were first
Okay.
introduced to him in the series, he's worried about finding his sister. He's worried about making his next paycheck. He's worried about, hiding from debtors. He's not worried about anybody else but me, I. And those values were instilled by him, instilled in him by Marva, but it took Luthen kind of giving him a nudge in the right direction to say, you have these skills, you have these abilities, you have the will. You need to use it for others and not just for yourself. You need to think about other people and how you can assist and help and rebel. You need to think about other people instead of just yourself. And up until that point, Cassian was all in. It was all into himself, and then you finally see him goes on that mission with the other rebels, Nymics and them, where they're trying to break into that vault. That's basically his first time having to branch outside of himself. I'm sure he's worked with other smaller, petty crimes and things like that with other criminals, but this is his first time doing something for the greater rebellion and actually having to work with an organized um like an organized terror cell. So he's having to work with people who know their shit. Like Cassian knows his shit, but he's now having to do his job. If Cassian messes up, he fucks it up for everyone.
Yeah,
It's not like
yeah, but
his other things where if he messed up, it would just be his ass on the line. He messes up in this situation, everyone is counting on him. Nymics messes up, everyone is counting on him. Everybody has a role to play. It all.
And yeah. And I just want to say, without Marvas and without Bixes, you get Dedras.
Mhm.
That's who you get if you don't have the people like Marva and Dedra, or Marva and Bix, to raise the next generation, to be a village. Because Marva didn't give birth to Cassian. She found a boy while she was scavenging with her husband, and then she was like, well, this is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
This boy needs me, and the fate of the Empire, or the fate of the galaxy, will eventually be on this boy too. He could
Mhm.
be the thing that changes it, and he was.
Oh, and it's not lost on me, like talking about Cassian's stepdad, it's not lost on me that the only character that we see hung in the series is a black man. That shit hit way too fucking hard for me. That made me sick to my stomach.
That
Because
was intentional, though.
it had too much symbolism. That shit made me sick to my stomach. Because he was a rebel, but it wasn't like he was actively, fighting against the Empire at that point. They literally singled him out
yes,
of the crowd and then killed him and hung him. The only black guy. That shit was intentional, and it evoked, as for me as a black Star Wars fan, I know that evoked emotions that white people are not necessarily going to feel.
oh, they
That was
probably completely missed that.
Oh yeah, it was too real because black. It's like it's letting you know that under these systems of fascism, right now, you're seeing that a lot of black folks are not engaged because it feels like everyone always leans on us as if we're the social justice avengers. We're expected to do everything, right? And even in this time of us minding our business, we're still getting targeted. Charlie
Yep.
Kirk gets offed by another white supremacist.
Mhm.
Black universities, HBCUs, are targeted. Black people are being lynched. What did we do? So that was what I saw in Andor. It's like he's not actively fighting against the Empire. He, like, in his mind, or they don't know he's a rebel, but they choose him out of the crowd and he is killed even though he hasn't done anything. That's like black folks are never safe. It doesn't matter if we're fighting against the system. It doesn't matter if we're minding our business. We are always the target. And that that felt like how they were portraying it. It may not have been their intention, but damn, that's what I got out of it.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
not
Well, I
new
mean,
to
that's
this. We're true to
yeah,
this. People keep
exactly.
warning us, oh, they're going to come after you. They've been coming after us.
Right.
Hmm.
That's the thing. And I think because this is so new to every other group of people, these movements that we have today, like we've been there, done that. We've been waiting on y'all to catch up is what it is. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
I think the lesson here, this is why I always say this is not our lesson to learn this time around. The lesson here is, I think, taking a page out of the books of people who have paved the way,
Mhm.
which were our ancestors, and also get rid of the moral superiority complex and be strategic. There was no strategy behind what happened in this election, and that's why we are here today, once again, fighting for rights that our ancestors fought for years back.
Yeah. There's
Now we got to do it again.
no accountability on the part of Democrats. It's vote blue no matter who. Okay, but you're not giving, number one, you're not listening to
Why
us when
though?
you're not giving or listening to us when you're in power. You want us to vote blue no matter who, but no, this time we'll listen. We'll listen. You said that last time. You said that the time
Hmm.
before that. You're not, we don't see transformative change with you. We have the ability to do that, but the complacency of Democrats is a major part of why we are where we are today. In Star Wars, the complacency of not only the Galactic Senate but the Jedi
Jedi.
is why we ended up where we ended up. And Jar Jar Binks, Jar, listen to me. I love Jar Jar Binks so much, but boy, he wanted to be accepted so damn bad that he played right into Palpatine's hands, and Palpatine knew that. He
This
Hmm.
is why
Jar Jar
you
Binks.
don't do Nepo babies.
Oh my God, Jar Jar wanted to be noticed because he got clowned on a lot. He was
Hmm.
bullied, and he felt like, I want to be important. He tried to ingratiate himself in a system that used him. Tokens get spent. Jar Jar was that token. He was the token that got put into the machine to give Palpatine power, and then Palpatine refused. Once he gained that power, he refused to give it up. Jedi were too the brilliance of Palpatine will never be lost on me. He gains that power, and then he immediately that war started. He gained the power, and he uses that war to not only keep the Jedi separated from one another, different parts of the galaxy. It distracts them from what he's actually doing from behind the scenes. That cloud, that shadow that Yoda keeps referring to. You have a whole ass war going on. Nobody is able to focus on. They think they're on the right side of history. They think they're the good guy. Nobody's able to focus on what's actually happening with the Republic. And then when it's too late, oh, wait a minute. The war is about to end. Like, we're about to get General Grievous. The war is about to end. Is Palpatine going to give up his power? He's not acting like he's going to give up his power. It's like um, what Donald Trump is doing right now. Is he acting like there's going to be another election in 4 years? He's actively bulldozing parts of the White House right now to
Yep.
build his ballroom. That
Ballroom.
doesn't
Yeah.
look like somebody that's getting ready to give up power. When we had the opportunity to stop him, we didn't do it. When they
No,
had the
really
opportunity
didn't.
to stop Palpatine, they didn't do it because they were so blinded. I can't compare Trump to Palpatine because Palpatine is
No,
a brilliant
Palpatine's
tactician.
way more. Yes.
He's a
Yeah.
brilliant
Palpatine was a
tactician.
calculator. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Hmm.
Trump is. People always focus in on Trump like he's the main problem. The man is just he's a bull
Mm-mm.
in a china shop. He had,
It.
like, his first term, he had people behind him who didn't know what they were doing. That's why his first
Yeah.
term was just ridiculous. His second term, he finally got those advisors, those people that they are puppet on a string. They point him in a direction, tell him that's the way to go. He charges.
Yeah. If anything, I would put him more as I would put Trump more as like a Grievous,
Yeah.
maybe a Duke, maybe a Duke. He ain't
Yep.
never the
I could see
Seems
Palpatine.
that.
like they're in power. It seems like they're in
Yeah.
power, but in reality, they're just a pawn.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
in the grand scope of Project 2025, if Trump falls, JD Vance is right there ready to take
Yep.
over. right there. That
And
ooh,
that's
the shit
scary
is
too.
fucking terrifying.
We keep
Yeah,
playing
that's
checkers
scary.
with these people. I don't understand it.
And
They
they
have
playing
been
3D
playing chess
chess.
for a long time.
Hmm
Right.
I feel like
Nothing
it's
we
so
have done thus
important.
far has worked.
I feel like it's important to say, like, the presidency isn't actually the most powerful seat
Hmm.
here.
hmm
You
No,
know,
absolutely
it's
not.
going to be, again, the billionaire class who are funding Project 2025. And I
Yep.
want to go to what Desiree said about making sure we're organizing and strategizing. And that's the whole point of Andor and what
hmm
we saw. The rebellion was built on hope.
hmm
Rebellions are built on hope, but they are also built on organized resistance, on
Yep.
strategy,
There you go.
on what is it, mutual aid.
Mutual
Like,
aid.
that's what they are built on, and that is
hmm
the thing that we need to learn from Andor. If you want to get out of this fascist regime, and it is not going to happen tomorrow, you have to learn the lessons from Andor.
Yeah.
Strategize, organize, mutual aid.
And I think
Yes,
that's what
You
without
know what?
strategy, you have nothing.
a lot of people
And,
got
and
hung up
also,
on
like,
that.
while
No,
we're
go ahead.
talking about strategy, make sure part of your strategy is talking to other people outside of your immediate group of people.
Yep.
Oh,
when you're
absolutely.
Yep.
organizing,
hmm
you know.
Absolutely. But when you're coming into, a space where people, have done this, like I
Right.
said, we're not new to this. We're true to this. We know what we're talking about. Our movements has gotten everybody their rights.
hmm
Exactly.
That's just a
And
simple
well,
fact. Nothing to brag about, but it's a
you know,
simple fact.
Yeah. And they
You
have to have
listen
the
to,
ability
you
to
have,
absolutely.
listen.
right. That's the thing. Nobody's trying to tell you how to run things. But when you learn from people who
Uh-oh.
have been there, been where you are going, you tend to listen in order to achieve what you want because the results show.
hmm And I think that's one of the
Exactly.
biggest issues that we have right now. Palm colored people have always had this have number one, the world caters to them, but they've always felt as if their voices are always centered. They're disorganized because they don't have the ability to take a step back and think, okay, maybe I should listen to the voices of these marginalized people. They think, I got it, I'm good. They've
Hmm.
never, in the United States, they have never had to fight for their rights without leaning on Black people. Not once. And it shows. It fucking shows. And so when you come to them and say, okay, there's a better way to go about this, they get all up in their feelings because it's an ego thing. It's because of how white supremacy operates. My ego comes first. I don't have the ability to take a step back and think introspectively and say, okay, you have the lived experience that I should listen to. I got to center myself in any given situation. My voice and my words should be centered. Well, look at what that gets you. No kings.
Yep. Oh my God, you said it. That's what I was thinking. I was like, that's how you end up with no kings. My other example I was thinking about was that women's march some years ago.
hmm
Like the women all got together and organized it, but they didn't talk to any black women
Nope.
whatsoever. They didn't even include them in the movement whatsoever. Like you just went out there and did this without talking to the people that were responsible for you even thinking about doing that.
It's like the suffrage movement.
I was just about to say Susan B. Anthony.
The black
Yeah.
women were excluded out the wazoo.
Wazoo. Yeah.
We're gonna fight for women's rights,
Oh my
except for
God.
black women.
I thought I was the only one that said Wazoo. Huh.
Yeah, no, it's just shit. It makes no sense. You need to have the ability, like you have to have the ability to listen to others. You have to have the ability um, to take criticism. You have to have the ability to take criticism. Does
Yeah.
it suck sometimes? Does it hurt your fifis, your feelings? Of course it's going to hurt your feelings. Is it going to be hard? Of course it is. Like we were saying about what Luthen said, we're not worried about our future. We already know that the sun has probably set on our ability to see this world without the evil and the fascism. But we have to be able to do the right thing even if there is no incentive for us. And I think that is one of the things that is the most difficult for people to wrap their minds around. They're terrified that they won't be able to see that bright future, even though it's probably the case we won't. because this isn't a one and done sort of thing. Fighting fascism is not a one and done thing. It's years of struggle, years
Mhm.
of doing the work. The boycott that they did during the civil rights movement, the bus boycott, lasted for the longest time. It wasn't just a month.
Mm-mm.
It wasn't a month of boycotts. I think a lot of people forgot that we're supposed to be boycotting Target.
I didn't.
No, I'm not. Yeah, not saying us, but I'm saying
No,
I've
but
been
yes, a lot
seeing
of people.
people, talking about, no, this is my Target haul. You forgot it's not like these
Propaganda
companies.
works.
Yeah, it's not like these companies, like did the right thing and we went back to supporting them. No, sorry, they got cut off.
Mm-mm.
They made it
Like,
clear
even
that
if
they
they
would support
did go back
fascism.
to doing things, like, I don't trust them now.
Exactly, it's
I didn't trust them.
performative.
I didn't trust them to begin with. But, like, yeah, it was performative to begin with. To be honest, like, the space that they did hold for us, I wasn't satisfied with that then.
Yeah, it was the bare minimum that they could do, and then they take away the bare minimum.
Their minimum, yeah.
Man, I really enjoyed
Real
this
quick,
conversation.
I was just about to say we are hitting 2 hours, which
Worth it.
means a
Oh
lot
my!
of editing for Xavier. So
Good luck to you.
great fucking conversation. Really good. We gotta have Sirius Blaq again very
Yeah,
soon.
that
This
was
was awesome.
incredible. That was
Thank
incredible.
you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to give you all the space to say any final points, because I feel like they said that they wrote Andor 3 years before what is happening right now, and it genuinely felt like they just went forward in time, wrote the
Mm-hmm.
script, and then went back, because it's like a play by play. And what we should be doing, I mean, we can take notes from how they operated in the show. Like we were saying before, mutual aid, direct action is key. The
Yep.
ability to maintain your composure. That means maintaining boycotts, maintaining that that energy at all times. Does that mean that things are going to get hard? Yeah. Yeah. Does that mean does that mean people are going to lose their jobs? Well, yes. Does that mean that people are going to hit hard times? Yes. But that's why we have community. That's why we have mutual aid. We have fail safes in place because fighting fascism means that people are going to suffer. That's the whole reason. So I hope that anyone that is listening to this episode or watching this episode, the takeaway from me, I'm hoping that you have the ability to recognize that none of this should be done for selfish reasons. None of this should be done because you're thinking about yourself. You need to think about your kids, and if you don't have kids, someone else's, anyone else. It's that, like I was saying before, that village back in the beginning of humanity. Villages lived in such a way that my kids are their kids are my kids. That's how we should be thinking about this.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Right.
Well, I'll go. So yeah, like I said in the beginning, I think I've only watched one episode of Andor, but I was able to follow along with just the themes of Star Wars in general and what it means and how it relates to the things that we see today. And so I really love this conversation. More importantly, I wanted to sit here and listen more than talk, since I have not seen Andor specifically. And yeah, I really enjoyed this conversation. And
We're fixing
yeah,
that
that's all I have to say.
in a couple weeks. We're doing an Andor marathon.
Oh, well, you're in it now.
Well, does that? Okay, anyway, we'll discuss that afterwards.
I just wanted to say that I was very happy to be part of this conversation, because uh, these are the type of things I think about in nerddom in general. I have worked in comics for about a decade now. And in fact, I used to work at Dark Horse Comics that used to print the Star Wars comics. And so these are the conversations that I would try to have with people all the time. But the fandom in general, especially here in the Pacific Northwest, weren't quite getting what I was putting down.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and not to say that we haven't had these conversations since, but it was a pleasure to know that I'm not alone and see these parallels when it comes to one of my favorite nerddoms to follow. So
Everything has nuance and intersectionality. And a lot of people who are in comic spaces, well, this should just be entertainment. I shouldn't have to worry about politics. I shouldn't have to worry about, for many people, for Black people and people of color, we don't get that luxury.
mm-mm.
Everything has to do with race. Everything has to do with politics. So, and most of these shows and TV shows bring elements from the real world, and those things carry over into the shows, into the comics. You cannot approach these things without the ability to decipher nuance. Otherwise, you just end up looking like uneducated,
Pretty
like a
much.
bigot.
Yeah.
I think one thing I want to say before we go is going back to Andor. Andor's very first mission for the rebellion is essentially hitting the Empire's paychecks, going
Mhm.
after their money. And I
Hmm.
want people to learn that the first thing you should do before you go out in the street is number one, think before you go out into the street and protest. But number two, protest economically, hit their
Yeah.
pocketbooks, and that's where you are actually going to see shit start happening. And
Yep.
take that lesson from Andor. That was the very first mission he went on, was hitting the Empire economically. Do that first.
Yeah, touching on that, we're actively seeing companies choose sides. Okay, so for
Hmm.
example, we there there are certain creators on TikTok and Instagram and things like that. Well, TikTok's one of those examples. You should be getting rid of TikTok. It's literally run by Israel now.
Hmm.
But you have companies like Spotify that are actively
That's the
running.
one.
They're running ICE ads. You
Yep.
need to get rid of that. there it takes time and effort to find alternatives, but it is the right thing to do. It takes time. It does. Is it difficult sometimes? Of course, doing the right thing is difficult, but you have alternatives, so you can do the right thing. You need to get rid of Spotify. We need to be getting rid of streaming services. So there are creators on Instagram who are posting how we can sail the high seas. We
Yeah.
need to be finding alternatives, so that way these companies who have made their their stance is very clear. We need to hit them in their pocketbooks, because they don't deserve the money that we are making in under this system of capitalism. We don't need that money being recycled back into these systems of oppression. We need to do the difficult thing and die to ourselves and our comfort and our entertainment, and find other ways to be entertained, ways that
Yeah.
don't feed the oppressor.
Agreed. And which is why also people need to really focus more on community as well.
Hmm.
Like what you keep saying, it takes a village.
Yep.
Get the village together and put some resources together.
Yep.
Even if your village is small, just do something with some people.
Yep. Yep. And that's like one of the big things when it comes to my platform on Instagram, for example. I know that one of my roles is being an educator, because history teaches us the paths that we should take. If we forget where we came from, we're doomed to make those same mistakes over and over again. And I know that my role as a teacher and an educator is to make sure we don't forget where we came from. So I try to make sure that my space is a safe space for people who are wanting to learn, for people who are seeking kind of like answers on where we are or what we should be doing. And obviously, I don't have all the answers, but that's why we have the community that we have in my space. And we have the Discord and whatnot. We need to have the ability to talk amongst ourselves, have the ability to um, assist each other in ways that we're lacking or others are lacking. It takes the ability to take critique. It takes the ability to think about other people. It takes the ability to not be selfish. And these are very difficult things that people are having trouble with right now. But does that mean that, like us in this room right now, all four of us, does that mean we stop doing the work because
Oh,
people are
absolutely not.
because people are annoying, because people are not doing what they're supposed to. No, it does not mean we stop doing the work. It just means that we have to be more vocal. So I really appreciate y'all joining me for the conversation today, because this was one of the ones I've been waiting for. I love the Andor series, and I love talking about those parallels, because America is the bad guy. So, thank you guys so much. And where it's Cerius, where can we find you, and where can we find your stuff?
Well, you can find me on YouTube actually under the channel Serious Slack with Serious Blaq, where I post music video reactions and I conduct interviews with comic book creators and other creators, and I dig into their hobbies, them as people, and some of their activism. And then I'm on Instagram and I think Facebook. No, I think I left that. But I'm on Instagram as Serious Blaq, and that's CeriusBlaq. So you can find me at those places. And that's about it, I think. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So Desiree, we know about you. Sydney, we know about you. Sydney, go power down.
Powering down.
Oh my God.
All right. Man, I like this format for the guest episodes. I like them being longer episodes. But
Yeah.
as always, this is Ebony Warrior Studios with blinding speed, master quality, and untold savagery. Go drink some water and do something productive, like dismantling systems of capitalism. Okay? All right.
That's an order.